and obviously I can edit it afterwards.
Oh yes, I do remember going somewhere in Birmingham. I did see that on film the other day. I can't remember who, maybe Tony Williamson or somebody was there. It was a convention of some sort. Lola was very small. It was a long time ago. Maybe that's number 4 interview.
So I think Tony Williamson wrote a lot of...
he wrote a lot of the Adam Adamants, yeah.
And he's no longer with us, is he? Or is
I don't know.
When you do research for these sort of things, there's some odd gaps here and there. You know, there's some people that just seem to disappear.
Yes.
And others very, very traceable, you know. So
yes.
It's a bit, it can be
well,
quite...
I suppose it depends if you're on Wikipedia or those sort of things. And
and if you want to be found, you know.
If you want to be found, exactly. And some people apparently go to the conventions and can make quite a lot of money out of that. I think somebody told me that when, would you like to do this again? And I said, well, no, not really. I thought they'd think I was mad, but that's once is kind of enough. Yeah. Otherwise, you just repeat yourself, I think. Are you filming this now?
Yes, I'll
good,
do a
actually.
little introduction in a second. But with the conventions, there's some huge conventions which are quite mad.
Yeah.
And you've got smaller events. There's something called London Film Fair, which is just off the West End, and that's for a lot of cult TV shows and things.
Yeah.
And if you ever want a bit of pocket money, it's a very good way of earning money.
I think that's
it's £20-30 a signature. And thousands of people will come through the door. It's amazing how many people are interested in these shows.
It is amazing, actually. It is amazing because at the time, it seemed very kind of light-hearted rubbish, really, some of the things we were doing. And to my astonishment, people are still interested. But I think it reflects the times. Those times were quite changing, weren't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
More innocent times.
They were more innocent times. Yeah. I think I might have said this to Jazz, but there was an enormous difference between the beginning of the 60s, the very beginning of the 60s, say. Well, we saw Roman Holiday the other day, I think that was somewhere around 1960, and the Persuaders, which might be 1970. And, you know, the character of Audrey Hepburn was so innocent, and I was just a bit of that sort of period, really. But by the end of the 70s, the characters I was playing were assertive young women, and feminism sort of trickling in there, although I didn't realise at the time particularly how much change had gone on. But I was kind of put in both camps in a way, because the 60s, from the beginning to end, was my time in a way. So many different sort of things, the whole political thing, the whole hippie thing, the whole women earning their own living. I mean, somebody said, because I had a flat of my own in real life and also in Adam Adamant, that was quite significant that girls had flats with other girls, and it didn't occur to me there was anything odd about that, but I suppose that we were the first generation that set up home with another friend, earning our own living, you know, and some of the television characters reflected that.
Yeah, they're very much a window into, say, what was happening, and they were very, so much change, as you say.
Yes.
It was the first time people were doing it.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you, Juliet, very much for wanting to speak to me today. It's very much appreciated. I know that people watching this would just like to have a little bit of background as to how you got into the industry, why you wanted to do that, and sort of how it came into your life.
Okay, shall we start with that? Well, like you, I was a teacher, and I went to Homerton College in Cambridge, and so obviously I got a job right away, and I was teaching, although our work experience was in some quite tough schools. I actually took a job in Kensington, near where my parents lived, because I was still living at home, and it was a little boys' school called Hill House in Sloane Square. It was quite an odd school, really. The children had little brown caps and something like A.A. Milne or something. But there was a couple of little boys that liked me very much and asked me to go home to tea with them. And I said, "Are you sure that's okay?" He said, "Oh, yes. I said, "Will your mummy mind?" And they said, "No, mummy won't be there because mummy's working." So that was quite interesting. So there was a granny there welcoming me back. And I had lovely tea with her. And then the mum did come back, and she became a friend, and she also became my agent almost instantly, because she said, I think there's something, she said, I think you're wasting your time teaching little boys. And I run an agency. She was quite an important agent called Ros Chatto. She said, I think I could get you lots of work. I think the first interview that she arranged for me was with Jacques Tati. So, talk about starting at the top. I remember going to the Savoy, and this gentleman came down the stairs, quite sort of dapper. And of course I didn't recognise him because I was thinking he'd be like Mr. Hulot. So he came towards me. I didn't know who he was. But he was very nice, and he was making a film actually about a young teacher, which is obviously why I got the interview. It didn't get made, but it got Ros interested in me, and then I think my very first job was in Emergency Ward 10. And she said, that will suit you because you can be a patient, and you've got a few lines, you just stay in your bed, so you don't have to learn moves, you know. I think I can do that a lot easier than teaching. And so that was the very first job I got. And then similarly, I can't remember.
I got the Peaches.
Oh, the Peaches. Oh yes, that's quite right. It was because, oh yes, that's right. I've forgotten something, because when I was teaching in this school where I met my agent, during that summer holidays, I went to America as a 21st birthday present, actually, because I had a godparent in America and some friends. It's friends teaching in Tobago that I'd met at Cambridge, and so that was a wonderful trip. But somewhere in America, I met somebody that worked at the BBC, and they said, I know somebody in the BBC in schools television, which was just starting. Not children's, by the way, schools television. It was sort of educational version of children's television. So I think probably they showed it after school, you know. A precursor of the famous children's things. Anyway.
Play School?
Play School, yes, exactly, precursor of that. So I thought, well, how do I go? I should just go to the BBC and ask for him. So it was as simple as that. I parked my car right outside the door, and he was called Michael Gill, and he was working on Monitor, but he was just changing to schools television at the time. And he said, we think you'd make a rather good presenter. And so, yes, that was actually my first job, introducing children to a guinea pig and how to look after it and that sort of thing. So I did that. And then Michael decided that he was going to leave the BBC and go independent, start his own film company. And he directed Peaches. And it won a short film prize in Cannes. So that was amazing. And he got Peter Ustinov to do the voiceover, so it was obviously a name. And I think quite a few people saw that. And so that was my second job on schools television.
And wasn't that called Tom Adams in the Peaches?
He was.
Did you recall
he
Tom
was.
Adams?
Am I right in thinking he was a Bond? I think he was tested for the James Bond.
He certainly had the look that might suggest that he might have done
I
at one
think
point,
he did.
yeah.
I think he did. Well, I haven't seen that since, but at the time it was considered a very good film. And it was a good start for me, because I don't think there was even any dialogue in it, to be honest. I didn't have trouble with dialogue, but I was eased gently into quite a lot of dialogue by the time I got out of Madman, because I think we had sort of one day off a week, and we did it for 18 months on the trot, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. You put your life on hold a bit, actually, when you do a long series like that, because one day off a week isn't very much for social life. Not that I really minded. I had plenty of that before. So it was very exciting. And, you know, back to Adam Adam, I met some incredibly interesting and well-off actors. They came and went. It was quite an unusual thing at the time. Television was only about 10 years old. maybe 15 years old. But to get people like Gladys Cooper to come and do one scene in Adam Adamant was astonishing. And many, many other people, I can't reel them off, but I could think about it and probably met the top echelon of acting society, as it were, over those 18 months. Incredibly interesting, nice, famous people who weren't at all snooty about working with me. And it was a great experience. Yes, our producer was extremely clever woman called Verity Lambert, and I think she was the producer of Doctor Who.
She was indeed the first.
Was that
3
after
years.
Adam Adamant or before?
So Doctor Who started in '63, and I think she was on the
Just
show
before,
for the first couple of years. So
I think she was.
Adam Adamant would have been
Yes,
after
exactly.
That,
And she was very well thought of, and I think she started her own company called the Cinema Verite eventually. She was very forthright and confident person. Very unusual though. She knew exactly. Gosh, Ridley Scott did one of them. I remember an example of working with famous people. And he drove her slightly mad because he said, no, I'm not happy with that shot. Can we have another, yes, another half hour? And she's obviously watching the budget. So that was a huge privilege, really. There were lots of people like that I worked with.
Because at the BBC at the time, they were very conscious on the clock. If you went over 10 o'clock, they'd pull the plug.
Oh yes, they would. But I think I don't know, Verity managed to persuade them that Ridley was something, and he was, and they didn't pull the plug.
Did you get the idea that Ridley Scott would have the career he had?
He knew exactly what he wanted,
yeah.
And I don't really remember talking to very many directors, but they were spontaneous often. But he seemed to know exactly what he was I think he trained at art school, so he knew what the look was of each shot that he kind of planned. I can't remember anybody else that sprang to mind, but he was very important.
And you did a couple of episodes of The Morning Lines. That was Richard Bryars and
yes.
Prunella Scales.
Oh yes, well remembered. Yes, I did work. I suppose Prunella Scales was perhaps one of the most famous people I worked with. It went out live, I think. And that was a bit scary. I think I was their neighbour, but a bit like Bless This House. I played the neighbour in that. And quite often, thinking about it, I was not only the neighbour, I did sort of 2 shows in a series, and I suppose, looking back, they were thinking, we could have her as a regular character, but I just did 2. I did possibly 2 Bless These Houses, and possibly 2 Marriage Lines, certainly 2 Avengers, certainly 2 or 3 Persuaders. So I was a semi-regular in some of these series. Oh yes, and there was Jason King and Department S. I think I did both of those.
There was 2 Department S's that you did. I did, and then obviously a couple of years later was Jason King.
Yes.
Which I think personally is a bit more of a fun series.
I think it was. I can't
S.
remember much about Department S, but Jason King was quite fun. I mean, looking at the pictures, he was extraordinary sort of character he played. He made enemies, but he didn't mind me, luckily. But there were people going, oh, be careful, he's in a terrible mood today, and hairbrushes were flying across the set, But it was all right. He seemed to be okay.
Yeah, I think Peter Wingard was quite a character.
He was a character, he was. As they say, had a view of himself, and he was... But then some of the people that became famous, some of them were like that, and as part of their fame, I think, people were slightly nervous of them. They could go either way,
I think it was a very seductive success like that, and you can easily be, get quite full of yourself, especially get a lot of fans, and you kind of your ego is always inflated. And it's very difficult to cope with that.
I think it's true. I think that's true, and it sort of gets out of hand a bit. Yeah. So I think he's died now.
I think he died about 7 or 8 years ago. I did meet him at a convention.
Did you?
The London one I was talking about earlier, actually.
Yeah.
He was a pleasant enough chap.
Okay.
But he was very chameleonic as an actor, especially something like Jason King, where he would play lots of different characters all the time.
Yes, yes.
You couldn't question his ability.
No, he had star quality, actually. Yes. Yeah.
What did your parents make of you?
Oh yes, I don't think they realised I was an actress. Actually, I saw very little of them over those years. Partly, literally, there were only 7 days in the week, and by this time I was living in a flat with a girlfriend called Jill Kennington, who was actually a very famous model at the time. So she was working a lot as well. I don't think either of us saw our parents for a while. But my parents, I think a lot of my family were doctors and things like that. They thought it was quite an odd profession to choose, especially as being a teacher. But there's quite a lot of similarities between teaching little children and acting. I'm not quite sure why I say that, but a little bit. So they were quite surprised. There was still a view that acting was a bit of a showing off sort of career. But you say that about teaching as well, because you're the only person, they're all listening to you, And but they were quite amused by that, I think. And my brother, he was very sweet. I only had one sibling, I think they were very amused. I think they expected one of us to be a doctor, probably, and it's possible that had I been a boy I might have been a doctor. But they didn't even teach. The school I went to was sort of quite sporty, and it wasn't a brilliant school. It was a boarding school, but I remember liking sport a lot. It was probably one of the reasons I got the job in Adam Adamant, because they did need somebody that could. Well, they said ski, and I went yes, hoping that we would get a little skiing, little holiday involved. But we didn't. We did quite a lot on location, but not skiing. But yes, I didn't. I probably might have been a doctor if I'd studied botany or something. That was my plan at one point. I'm very happy with what I have done, though. I've had sort of 2 careers, or 3 really: teaching, then acting, and now I paint, and I've written some children's books and things, and that's worked out. That's worked out quite well for me, I think. I'm very, very lucky, and I always loved the country. I don't think I would have been so happy to bring up children in London. Wouldn't really have suited me. I couldn't possibly have worked as well. I would have felt too split, 2 sorts of people doing that.
That's the dilemma that women face, don't they, even today, that sort of the
Yes.
career, and especially your career in show business, where it's
Absolutely.
those long hours that you
Absolutely, and they say that you can only do sort of 2 out of 3 things at a time, so you can be a mum and family person, or you can be social, or you can work. Any 2 of those are good, but all 3 is not really possible. I think there's something to be said for that. So yeah, I changed career as I changed, I suppose, and as my priorities changed.
So you did an episode of Armchair Mystery Theatre.
Oh yeah, well done. I'd forgotten about that.
That had Charles Gray and Peter Jeffrey. Peter Jeffrey, of course, would
yes,
go
I
on to
did.
have
I
it.
did. I haven't seen that, but I remember being in it. I remember for some reason they wanted me, but they wanted somebody with dark hair, so I was put in a dark brown wig, which was quite amusing. And I remember the very first scene, I had to come in, take my Mac off and hang it on a peg, and I thought I had my hat on. So I started to take my wig off and realised that was a wig. So I just went off or something like that, and then got on with the scene. I think that was live as well, actually, because they couldn't say, no, cut, start again. I did, and that was, yeah, it was, Armchair Theatre was a very good idea. I'm not sure it hasn't come back, or Play for Today has come back.
Yeah, we have
Or is
a
coming back.
modern version of it.
Yes, yes, exactly. But yeah, well, a couple of very, very good actors there. So I was working with the best people from whom I learnt as I went, you know.
Did Charles Gray leave any impression, or?
Not really, had a very pompous voice, didn't he? So that's the
Very
impression in my... Yes, yes, that's all. Peter Jeffrey I worked with again. I think it was in a film called Home Before Midnight. Does that ring a bell? Or
It does ring a little bell, yes.
I'm not sure. I did definitely work with him again. No other memories of that particular episode.
It was just interesting from a trivia point of view that Richard Harris was the writer on that episode. Richard Harris would go on to write the Avengers, and he created Touch of Frost and things like that.
No, you know your stuff. So one job leads to another, you see, all the way on any level, directors and actors and whatever, editors. That's quite true. We had a number of script writers, and some of the episodes, the various things I did were very similar. And I do remember saying, hang on, I've been in this story before. And he said, yes, that was another thing. I think that was the Avengers. It's the same story, I admit it, but we've got different characters.
There was a very famous situation. I think it was a writer written an episode of one show and then an episode of another show, completely unrelated shows
yes.
at the same time.
Yes.
And it just so happened that they were broadcast back to back on the actual night. And all the poor writer had done was change the names of the characters and a couple of things like that.
Yes.
And it was pretty much verbatim the same script. So of course viewers were very puzzled when they were watching the second episode, thinking, I just watched this, and
yes.
so he was caught out rather spectacularly.
Yes,
but,
that's very funny.
So of course you did the Avengers. It was the first Diana Rigg episode. Was it straightforward getting a role on a show like that, or was it a bit more involving?
No, it wasn't as, it was an early Avengers I was in, I think. So it wasn't established as a very famous thing, so it was just another interview. I don't remember it being difficult. I mean, it may have been that Roz Chateau represented Diana Rigg, for all I know, because sometimes I later learned that the agents did deals with producers and they said, well, you're having her, would you like her as well? And that sort of thing went on. So there may have been a reason, but I just went straight for the interview and got it right away. Sometimes I think I was just asked to do something at that point without an interview, but I can't remember if that was true. And there was a famous fight scene with Diana, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I've seen that, and it's very good to look at that. The Avengers. The camera work is wonderful. Still black and white at this point, and it was very well put together. I thought it stood up very well. I wouldn't have known it wasn't me and her fighting when I saw that episode. I was fooled by it completely watching it later. It was funny.
It's very well put together, that scene, and I assume you and Diana would have done a version of it, and the stunt doubles would have done, and they were kind of cut in between the two. I'm guessing, but it is a very good sequence.
I think it was, isn't it?
And, you have Jeremy Burnham in that episode who plays the priest. Jeremy Burnham.
I don't remember.
I do have a picture of him just in case you might want to see him.
Jog a memory. I mean, my part wasn't enormous by any means. I did watch all that, and then here I come, and then it was built up to the fight bit.
There's that gentleman there with Diana.
Oh yes, I remember the face. Yes.
He also wrote various episodes of various things, and he was also an actor, Terence Alexander. I don't know if you remember that gentleman there.
Yes.
The scene where you in the pub. And Terence is in there.
Yeah, he did quite a lot, didn't he?
And also this gentleman here, that's with you.
Remind me.
That is Alan McNaughton. Yes, he sort of played the teacher inspector, so you two were in cahoots in terms of school.
Yes, you know your stuff, yes.
But all very good character actors.
They were very good character actors. So I was extremely lucky, because I think if you work with the best people, you do learn. It's a huge privilege. Yeah.
And because of course this is when the Avengers was just kind of sort of started to hit its stride. It had been on videotape before, and was just coming into film. And it was interesting because there was Diana Rigg was not the first choice for Mrs. Peel. It was a lady called Elizabeth Shepherd. That was,
Really?
They went so far as to film the entire episode with her, and I think a bit of the next one.
Oh, really?
Before it kind of fell apart.
Isn't it funny how that happened? That happened with Adam Adamant as well. They had another girl. She did the whole of the first episode. I'm really glad I never met her. I would have felt so embarrassed, but anyways, but she had a good career. But it's strange why they make those decisions, you know. We were never told, really. We just, you're on now, you're doing it, and that was that, you know. And that may happen much more often than you think. And sometimes if you're asked to do something, you get sent a script and you don't know whether you're first, second or third choice. It's a sort of secret rule that you don't say.
Yeah. I think it's one of those industries where you've got to be quite thick-skinned, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You have to be able to deal with rejection. And I think if I was rejected, it didn't strike me too hard because I felt I was lucky to be doing it at all, really. And it was such good fun. It was almost socially fun as well, in a different sort of way.
And it was Roy Ward Baker that was directing.
He was quite famous, wasn't he? Did he work with Marilyn, I think?
Yes, he did.
Somebody told me that later.
And
Lucky I didn't know that at the time.
Well, I think that was partly why we're still talking about the shows now, is that they're made by filmmakers, essentially.
Yes,
they
were.
They weren't really TV, they were short films.
That's
really.
absolutely right. And so they brought their knowledge, and also the quality of the work was often better, and you could see the difference, I think, later. Yes, well, yes, I do remember him.
And I would have thought you would feel a difference when you were on a show like that compared to, say, if something was done live or on videotape. This must have filmed quite luxurious.
Yes. Well, basically, thinking back, the established film directors that were branching out into television were older, and the younger directors were probably, well, quite a lot younger, hadn't done anything in film or theatre, but went straight into television. So there was an age thing and experience which went with that. Yeah, I think that's true.
Do you have any memories of Patrick Minnie or Diana Rigg at all? Or any impressions of them?
Not really, but I did enjoy it, and I got on fine with both of them. I mean, it happens very quickly, that sort of thing.
Well, yes.
You know, I wouldn't be sure, but it might have been 2 days in the studio and then bye. It's not like being in a play with somebody and you're touring 14-week tours in the theatre, and you really do bond with people in the theatre much more, because it takes so much longer to rehearse, get to know people. It's quite a kind of courageous thing to do, and it's so quick in telly.
Did you find, because of course, I mean, I would hate to have one job next week, you know, another, you know, different places and stuff. But was that part of the thrill, being an actress?
I didn't mind that at all. I had an open diary, you know. It's definitely not possible for me. It wouldn't have been as a mum, because I needed to have a kind of schedule and routine and to know what I was going to do next. But no, that was fine. I had a little car, and I remember going out to Pinewood or whatever, and next week I'd go somewhere else, and I didn't have anything else in the diary at all. That was amazing, actually. It was lovely.
And of course, you said that when you were casting Adam Adamant Lives, it was you were replacing another actress.
Yeah.
So that must have happened quite quickly. You must have been very much sort of thrown in the deep end in terms of
it
on that
was
show.
Extremely quick. I remember going for an interview, not having the faintest idea about it, and being told, would I wait outside the room? And I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. I said, oh, it'll only take 5 minutes or something. And they asked me back in, and they said, would you like to do it? So it was, would you mind waiting outside a minute? Probably means you've got the job, actually. I realised then. And it started the following week. It was lucky I didn't have any other plans. And that was nearly 2 years or something. I think about 18 months, wasn't it? It was solid.
Because that was recorded on videotape, so because it was quite difficult to edit videotape, it was very expensive. You pretty much filmed it like a play.
Yeah, well, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And any fluffs, you know, if they were small enough, they'd go in the to find
Yes,
out.
yes. It was fine. I don't quite know how I did it actually, but it was fine.
Because it must be also quite technical, because of course the cameras back then were not the small portable ones we have now. There must be lots of wires.
Huge, like cars or something. Yeah.
Just resetting between scenes and to get to one set to next, I thought would be quite challenging.
I think looking back, it required huge concentration of when you weren't doing anything, but between the scenes to stay in that mode and concentration. I haven't really thought about that. But I remember being on a film set when you had to wait around for absolutely hours. You were called for 8 o'clock in the morning and you weren't actually on till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember I was reading a book once. I think it was something about Schulberg's, and I was deeply engrossed, and somebody said, "Excuse me, you shouldn't be reading a book, you should be thinking about your part." And I thought, that's more than can be asked of me. I've been here for hours. You wouldn't say so. You were supposed to just... But to keep the concentration going all day on what you're supposed to be doing, it was actually easier in the television studio, because it was moving at a fast rate with breaks, but smaller breaks in between, you know.
Were you also doing any theatre at this time, or did that theatre come
That was a bit later, and I think now that I was probably used, because I was a little bit of a name, to drum up some funding for tours, which sometimes came into London. But most of the theatre things I did a tour first, and then came in to the West End. There was quite a famous film director called Paddy Carstairs, I remember, and I suppose he must have been, looking back, he was probably about 60, but I worked quite a lot with Paddy, but he had made some, I think he made some of the Ealing comedies actually. But we did a tour of a Agatha Christie play with him, and then I did a tour with Simon Williams. Well, I think he was in that as well, but Simon and I did a teaching, a massive series of teaching English to children in Czechoslovakia or something. And so Paddy did that. That was for about 6 months, I think. So maybe there's probably people in Czechoslovakia that talk like me and Simon now.
I have spoken to Simon, it was a few years ago. We're desperately trying to get to do something else, but our schedules are quite difficult.
No, he's very nice. He's one of the few people I've kept up with, but we don't see him very often, but we do see him sometimes, yeah.
I'll certainly mention it if I have.
Yes, of course you can, yes.
Interested in that. So because you didn't have the sort of theatre background when you were doing these kind of shows, was nerves?
Oh yes, I thought you might mention the word nerves. I was absolutely petrified. I thought, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm completely terrified. It was like, I had to somehow. I had to conquer climbing the Matterhorn or something. But then you do get a huge wave of relief, and it's amazing that you've got through it, and the laughs came where you hoped they would, and all that. It's interesting because every night's slightly different. Why didn't they get a laugh that night? Just split-second timing of some sort, you know. It's very fascinating, that. But I did like comedy. So that whole thing about what's working in the laughs was very interesting.
So added nerves when it's something that's being like adamant, where what you're doing, that's it. With those theatres you get to change it and refine it. But
absolutely, absolutely. That's as simple as that. That was it. I thought it was nonsense half the time, but the theatre was a bit more serious, you know. And you can improve, and that's nice actually. It can get better, and
And did you want to see some of the episodes that you were in at the time? Did you want kind of...
At the time, no, because I was so busy. I was doing very well. I didn't have time. I don't think I even had a television. I didn't have a television set. Well, I did in London, but then I wasn't there very much to watch it. When I came to the country, I didn't have a television set till, I think, when Bill came to live with me in the country after a couple of years. He's mad keen about Wimbledon, and we got a television for Wimbledon. But so there's a whole chunk of the 70s that we didn't have a television for. And I didn't, with children you don't have so much time anyway. But I think by the time Wimbledon came, children came, and then that was very useful for Blue Peter and Play School and those sort of things. We never had a television in our main sitting room, and so I think it's quite nice that, because you go to watch something, it's not exactly like getting in the car and going to the theatre or to a film, but it's slightly separate from daily life and daily sort of lots of chatting and things like that round the fire, but television is in a separate room. I think that was quite good. I think after school children would do anything rather than watch television, actually, to make things and do things and wind down that way, and then go and watch television. That's what seemed to happen.
It's a more healthy kind of relationship with it,
I
whereas
think
nowadays
so.
it can be kind of what the
Part
centre of things.
life,
Can't it,
absolutely. No, I'm quite old-fashioned like that, or was, but yes.
And we can't not mention Gerald Harper.
Oh, Gerald, I was a bit frightened of him to start with, but he was very nice. We were friends in the end. I don't say we weren't friends, but I thought he is such a confident man, you know. He's worked with all the most famous actors, and I think he found me a bit of an enigma to start with, but our relationship worked, I think, on screen and privately and socially, and he was incredibly pleased to see me when we did some filming much later, when it came out on video, I think, and it was lovely to see him again. But I think the public sometimes think that you'll see people you've starred with as friends. They're amazed that you don't see each other anymore. But that's what happens. You don't often. Very occasionally, like with Simon, we've kept up, but very few people move into your home life. Everybody goes on and plays another part somewhere. And it's a sort of family thing, but like having cousins in Australia or something that you're pleased to see, but you don't keep up with all the time.
Yeah, they occasionally weave back into your life.
Yes,
and,
they weave back. That's a good way of
yeah.
putting it, exactly.
I mean, some actors have told me that's why actors tend to call people darling, because you remember them, but they can't for the life of them think what their name is. So probably it's just a bit of a shorthand of, you know.
And the public have the most extraordinary ideas about actors, because I was with somebody once and he said, isn't that somebody? And I went, yes, yes. He said, I've never seen a live actor before. I thought, that was a really extraordinary thing to say.
It's quite funny, yeah. So I want to just touch on one particular episode of Adam Adamant Lives. Beauty is an Ugly Word. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember the title.
Episode. And that seems very relevant, I think, now. It was about Peter Jeffries was kind of a deranged man who valued beauty beyond everything else, and he wanted to create a beautiful society, a bit of sort of a Nazi type sort of blonde
I'd
ivory.
love to see that again. I
Very,
can tell me a bit more about it. I can't.
So basically, there's one moment where he's basically got this island, or where he's planning to have this island, but he's building up sort of a race of superhumans, physical specimens, men and women that are physically perfect. There's one bit in the episode where one of his specimens is in the gym, and they have an accident, and he says, will it leave a scar? He said, yes, on their shoulder. And he said, you must kill them, because they won't be perfect anymore.
It's horrible.
And that sort of, it does resonate in certain things, you know. So,
and what happened to me in this episode?
You're considered to be one of the perfect specimens that he wants to, and along with Gerald as well.
Yeah.
And they kidnap you. It's almost like a Jeffrey Epstein almost kind of grooming, you know, so there's elements that you could read into with things happening now and before.
Yeah.
Very timely episode,
Yes.
I think. And of course Gerald comes in to save the day and get you out, and he was going to then destroy the world with this virus he had, protect you know, his people, and then the world would be full of beautiful people.
Ooh.
So for that but it does have Annette Andre in the episode. Who of course
that's the link with
Randall Hopkirk.
Randall Hopkirk. I'd have to see that sometime, that episode too. But I remembered her when I saw her in Randall Hopkirk. I'm not sure I had any scenes with her.
Not in Randall, but you do have a couple in
that's why I knew the name so well, probably.
And what's quite interesting about the episode is that she plays the villain, and she's we used as an audience to see her
Yeah,
as, you know,
I
as,
see.
as you know, as
Oh,
one
you
good
know
guy.
your stuff, yes. I see.
And at the end, she trips on a rugby boot in the gymnasium and the studs, and her face gets disfigured.
Oh.
So she knows that Peter Jeffries wouldn't accept this, and they're kind of like partners
Oh
in
God,
this.
that's a good story. Who
And,
wrote this one?
It was I think I got it somewhere. I think in my notes. But
It's very interesting.
so what she does, because she knows he won't accept her, she kills him. She shoots him in the end. A very, very interesting story about sort of what is beauty and what is, you know.
Yes,
you know,
yes, yes.
Very, very, very
I'm
interesting.
glad you reminded me of that.
So it's quite an interesting series. I would have thought to be involved with, and looking at Gerald's
But that's
performance
way
in
over
that.
my head at the time, because now isn't then. And it didn't occur to me it was anything except some crazy idea.
Mm.
So I wouldn't. That's so interesting. You should write about all that.
Well, I might one day.
Yeah.
So were you quite disappointed that it didn't go to a second series?
Yes, I would have liked it to. I think we all were, because it was, you know, as an old rule, you don't take off something that's doing well unless you're mad, really.
Yeah.
But it was doing well. I think we had 12 million viewers, which is, you know, that's on television when things like Traitors get 12 million viewers, which I actually haven't seen that, but that's a lot of viewers. Mind you, there wasn't much else on. But I think it was the Avengers, was it? The new Avengers that put us out of
Oh, yes,
business.
you would have been, yeah, it would have been
I think
the
they
late
were.
Diana Rigg ones, I think maybe
It
because
was
of course,
scheduled at the same time.
and you were getting some shows in colour, whether the fact that, because of course to sell a show internationally, you had to be on film to break the American market.
Yes.
And because Adam Adamant was videotape, maybe that meant
That would have been another
commercialise
reason.
it in the same
That's
way.
probably the main reason.
But I think it was a show that
It was
had
a shame.
lot
I
of
would have been
strength
very
to it.
happy to do another one, of course.
Yeah.
That would have been enough probably, but
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. So just want to move on to Randall Hopkirk, because you do have some good scenes with Mike Pratt. Do you remember Mike?
I remember his face so well. It was such a craggy, interesting face, and he was a good actor. Yes, I knew that by then. I knew who was good.
Just going back to the Adam Adamant episode I mentioned, I don't have the writer's details, but it was Philip Dudley.
Oh yes, that
He's
rings a
directed
bell.
a few of your episodes.
I think Philip Dudley directed a pilot with Mike Pratt and Ronnie Fraser, written by David Croft. That was a shame. That was good fun. I think that was in about 1972 or something like that. So I did see Mike Pratt again, but that didn't happen. But I think Philip Dudley, there's another example of moving on with the same people, sort of like in a, yeah. That happened quite a lot, yes.
You do get quite a few names,
Yes,
Peter Jeffries.
recurring and combinations of people recurring.
Having worked with Peter Jeffries a few times, do you have any lasting memories of him, or just sort of...
Not really. I didn't bond with him particularly. It was all right.
Well, I think it tends to be when I ask people this question, they usually kind of have a similar response that you've had. It's usually the ones that they didn't get on with that they perhaps have a lasting memory. So if the recall is, he was fine, professional, it usually means they were pretty good.
Oh yeah,
They would do their stuff.
Exactly.
So yeah, she has some nice scenes with Mike Pratt in Randall Hopkirk.
Yeah.
And of course, the telltale giveaway that you're not the nun you're supposed to be is that you have makeup on.
Yes.
Is,
Well, I'm glad you sent me that because I can't remember. I do remember going to the pub for lunch in my nun's outfit. I had a Morris House and a convertible, and people thought I was seeing things. And we were listening to the Beatles or something like that. Would it probably be?
One of the connections with the episode that I find very interesting is it was directed by a gentleman called Raymond Austin, or Ray Austin.
Ray Austin rings a bell,
yeah.
yes.
He did a few episodes of the Randall Hopkirk. He began as a stuntman.
Oh
And then
yes.
became a stunt coordinator.
Oh yes.
Second year director,
That's
and then
interesting.
broke America and went to do Hawaii 5-0s and Magnum PIs and Heart to Heart and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So it's
really?
very unique from such a home. He actually began as Cary Grant's driver.
Really, that is an unusual
Yes,
route
so
to
from-
fame, actually.
From a driver to Hollywood
Yes,
director.
That's
you know.
wonderful.
And I got to know Ray quite a lot in the last few years of his life. We did, I think, 12, 13 Zoom events together.
I'm really
It
glad
was
for
very
him. That's
friendly.
amazing, isn't
Yeah.
it? I do remember him.
Yeah.
How funny.
I get a sense that whenever I ask people about Ray, nobody has a bad word to say about him.
No, I remember him
He-
as nice, but
He
I can't.
always, from my point of view anyway, he always seemed to make you feel like you were the most important person. You know, he was that kind
Partly
of
probably
regal
because he's
person.
had a variety of jobs and hadn't always been famous and, from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's a nice person.
So what were your thoughts on the Randall Hopkirk episode? Did you quite enjoy seeing it again?
Yes, it was funny. I did think it was a bit weirdly edited. I don't know if the editor's still listening to this, but he was probably only got 5 minutes to do it in. But it was funny. It was funny. That's to see it again. I thought it stood up remarkably well. And they did another series recently, didn't they?
Yes, yes.
But it was probably only 2 days out of my life. Remember that sort of. I think it was here one day, gone the next. I was on to something else. I had to actually look up online who played Randall Hopkirk because I'd forgotten, but still good fun.
I mean, Mike Pratt, of course, that died far too young.
Yes, he did.
Kenneth Kopp died quite recently. He
Yeah.
played, of course, Marty, the ghost. But I don't think you would have had much to do with him.
No.
But I think it was quite a unique sort of setup.
It was
as a
very
sort of,
unusual.
yeah.
Do you know who wrote that? I can't.
It was produced by Monty Berman, who did things like The Saints.
Oh, very
it was
famous.
Dennis Spooner created
right.
the show.
Yes, that's right.
And Dennis died young, unfortunately, of a heart attack. I think he was about
Mm.
50-something. But his daughter, Elaine, we've done a few events. I've done a few events for the shows that her dad worked on.
Yes.
And Elaine has watched some of them.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite nice. That,
Oh, very
that
nice.
She
No,
she
very
wanted
nice.
to know a bit more about her
Yeah.
dad and,
Yes.
and the work that she sort
Yeah.
of done, really.
No, that's lovely. The continuity of that.
Mm.
That's really nice.
Do you find there's much of a difference when you're working on those black and white shows compared to colour? Is there much of a difference from an acting point of view?
No. It's strange about that. When I met Gerald again for the filming, the episode when it went on to video, and I literally hadn't seen him for, 50 years or something, and I think they borrowed the car back for this bit of filming, and I think they filmed him arriving in that little car and me coming out to meet him, and I think I said to him, I thought you'd be in black and white. I hadn't seen him for so long. So somewhere in my brain there was a kind of image of him and Carl in black and white, and now we're 50 years later and there he is in colour and the car is brown kind of. It was quite strange that.
Obviously very different point from a makeup and a costume, lighting and point of
Yes.
view, and I think there's something very magical about those black and white shows, the black and white Avengers.
That was terrific
More
when I
interesting
saw
to me,
that
I
the
think.
other day.
Yeah.
It was very, very well filmed and it's really stood up. Yes, I don't quite know why. Really good black and white photography is often better than colour photography. I'm not sure why that is.
I think it provides more atmosphere.
Yeah.
It sort of, gives sort of a certain quality to it, and I think colour shows back in the 60s and early 70s, they were perhaps very caught up in the fact it was colour.
Yeah.
So you get lots of, very sort of bright blues and yellows. And,
Strange colours,
very
actually.
sort of, lovely visually to look at, but
Yeah.
not the realistic stuff
They're
you get
not
later,
realistic.
later on, perhaps.
That's right. So actually black and white comes over as more realistic. And
I
that's
think so,
strange.
yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah. It just feels moodier and a bit more gritty, I suppose. So when you were doing videotape, you were sort of you would rehearse during the week, I take it, and then you'd have a like a tech rehearsal, and then you record it. Sort
We
of
did very, very little rehearsing. We had a read through,
Yeah.
and then I think we went straight into the tech.
Mm.
It was that quick, and Gerald will remember exactly how long we had, because I remember talking in that film that somebody called Andrew Pixley did. We went out to Pinewood, and
Yeah.
I haven't got a copy of the film, but he knew exactly how long we had. But you know, it was interesting to think, how did we do that? It was very, very quick turnover from one thing to the next. No rehearsing at all often. It's funny, isn't it?
And do you find that it's when you're guesting on, it must be very different from when you were sort of being the co-lead of Adam Adamant to being to guesting on a show, because you're kind of fitting in with existing.
Didn't mind,
and
that was different,
yeah.
yes.
And of course on Adam Adamant you're kind of bringing people in and you're making them comfortable, aren't you?
Yes.
So that's kind of a different kind
Yes.
of responsibility that you and Gerald would have had.
Yes. I don't really know. I hope I did that well, and I think that other people where I was a guest did the same thing. I think, on the whole, actors are very generous people. I don't think you'd be an actor. I mean, some people wouldn't perhaps agree, but I think you're good if you have that generosity, because you're aware of other people, you know.
Well, it's
Empathy.
such a collaborative thing,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you need empathy, as you just
Exactly.
said, and if you're not that way inclined,
Then you're not going
to last.
No, you're not
know.
going to last. I mean, if you do, you'll sort of come and gone quick, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, I must mention the Persuaders. You get
Oh,
to do
yes,
two
that's
episodes
right.
of that.
That's quite famous. People really remember that one.
They do consider it to be perhaps one of the best shows ever made of that sort of period. It was the most expensive show.
I'm going to say, yeah.
Up to that point, it
Yes.
was very, very expensive show indeed.
Well, it was more like a James Bond film or something, and they had huge budget.
Yes.
And I don't know what the budget was, but it was probably 10 times as much as an episode of Randall and Hopkirk. Easily, I should think. I mean, Roger Moore and Tony Curtis's salary alone would be
wouldn't have been cheap.
fast,
no.
you know.
But people like Monty Berman, who did the Randall Hopkirk, he was quite famous for kind of keeping the money down.
Yeah.
And Lou Grade, or Sir Lou Grade, who did things like The Persuaders, liked to spend money and have it, not frivolously, but he wanted it to be on the screen and he wanted to get a value, and all his series had an eye on the American market. So that's why
went automatically to America.
Yeah.
Well, then the money was worth spending.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it's lasted. The quality was amazing. That they were very, very good, those two together. I recently saw The Misfits with Tony Curtis in, and it's still very, very funny. Roger was delightful. He was a real gent. I think everybody probably says that. Tony was a bit more in his own world. Slightly, what's it called? He's something the matter with him. He had his pulse rate taken every lunch. Neurotic, slightly, yeah. But that was part of the charm, I suppose. And the two went well together.
They were very chalk and cheese, and in the show they're described as nitro and glycerine. Together nothing, but together, apart nothing, but together. I
think the casting is incredible. It needs real genius. If you get the chemistry right, it's half the show, really. People are often very different, and that works.
And it's quite nice because the first episode you do, which is The Old, the New and the Deadly, your scenes are pretty much with Roger.
Yes.
So that's sort of establishing, you have a wonderful, flirtatious...
well, I'm quite assertive. That's what I was saying about the beginning of the 60s. You would have been quite people-pleasing as a young lady, But by the end, I gave him a smack in the jaw, didn't I? And I've got a picture of that. It looks as if I'm meeting Tony Curtis, but I think I missed Roger and got Tony instead or something.
Yes,
I haven't seen it in detail, but that would have been unheard of 10 years before. It would be very unladylike. It would be absolutely a different kettle of fish.
It's very interesting, we were saying about the changing role of women in shows, and even there's, say with the Avengers, you have Diana Rigg throwing people across the studio,
Yes.
and she lives in her own apartment, and she's very much sort of the equal.
Independent and equal, yes.
And then you have Randall Hopkirk, we have Annette Andre's role, where she is in a lot of the episodes very sidelined and not really in them that much.
Exactly.
And talking to Annette, which I've done a few times, I'm very happy to say, is that she kind of felt a bit frustrated that there were shows like The Avengers,
yes,
the Bond
and she was
girls,
playing the old-fashioned lady in that old-fashioned type.
There were women on a black woman in Bond flying helicopters, flying off over her shoulder, and you have her kind of almost like that hadn't existed. It was very much so. And I suppose even with Adam and Liv, you weren't, certainly in some of the episodes I've seen, it wasn't like an appeal type sort of role.
No, because I was the damsel in distress more often.
Yes.
So it was, I suppose, thinking about it, it was a mixture. I was independent, had my own flat, but I always had to be rescued.
Yes.
I suppose that sums up the times that I was living in at the time, because I was a bit of both those things, I suppose. And then very gradually, I think women just got more confident.
So were you conscious of that change in terms
No,
of
looking
society?
back, I know I wasn't really at the time. You just did, I mean, I bought this cottage, say, with Adam money. It was £4,000. Now, that's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. So in actions, I suppose, I was doing something about it, but I wasn't able to think about it as something rather amazing, either what you could do with £4,000, or was it unusual to have your own cottage? You know, I didn't really think like that.
Did you ever find that there's some of the roles you were given did you ever feel they were a bit frustrating?
No, I didn't. I'd like to say yes, but no, I think it was fine. It just suited me at the time. So I was more that sort of actress, good, being one sort of person than a character actress, being able to do lots of kinds of characters.
Was it a bit of a shock when you went from Adam where you had that kind of long-term security job, and then you're kind of back to, which is the actor's story in itself, you know, you're going back to sort of...
Well, it was a bit of a shock when I had children, because I thought I can't make money anymore, so I did loads of voiceovers for a while, and then very gradually sort of eased away and fell in love with Gloucestershire, and it was just a different me coming out in terms of what I could cope with and what was, like I've always painted, and so I very gradually swapped one thing for another, I suppose, in terms of creativity. I couldn't have had children in London, that was the thing. I would have found that too stressful to be both types of person, you know.
So it wasn't any respect to disillusionment with acting, it was just kind of your life was shifting?
No, and then I did meet Bill, and being married to a director was very important, because I was still living in the acting world through his decisions, what plays he was making, the actors he was working with, and I was still part of the family in a sense. That was really lucky, I think.
Did Bill ever direct you, or
no, you should ask him that. No, I wouldn't dream of it. No, you'd be a nightmare to direct. He said that once to me, but that didn't matter. But it kept me in the fold, as it were. That was really lovely. And also, the way it was very different by that time, young directors were having drinks with the cast. He was at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and that was an amazing time to be at the RSC. But his cast were up there for the whole year, or something like that. The contracts were for a year, so they got to know each other very well. And he would have drinks with them, and me sometimes, after the show, in rehearsals, if we were up there. And that was amazing, because we never saw the director again in the television I was doing, partly because everyone was in London and went home. But then I realised there was another sort of director that got to know the actors personally, because you were in the same town as them and everybody was living in the same area. So that was nice. As I say, I still met a lot of actors and was part of that world. So I didn't miss it in that sense. It's really nice talking to you and very nice remembering all these things. And I do think you should write a book about all this because it's very interesting. It is socially interesting, that 10 years particularly. Honestly, 1962, I was wearing little white gloves and little suits and going for interviews like a Edwardian lady practically. And then by the end there's the miniskirt and all that, and then the hippie stuff, and it was a complete change. I mean, a massive change in fashion and class and all those things. Mix up.
Yeah.
It was all good.
When it came to the costumes that you had in these
Yeah.
episodes, I've heard that was some guesting actors and actors would bring their own clothes, or was it a combination of that?
Occasionally, but I remember I went on shopping trips with the costume person, who was called Michael somebody, and he had great sense of style, and he chose things that I liked. We went together for the shopping. He didn't say, this is what you're wearing today. We would have a trip down Bond Street or Selfridges or wherever we went, King's Road, obviously, until he thought that was right, and I went, yeah, that's cool. So I remember I had really nice little slingback shoes, because the days before trainers, and we were running around a lot, I mean, on and off that little Lambretta and running. But we didn't wear trainers. I mean, I still call them gym shoes, and they were for gym, really. But with little slingback, small heel shoes that you could run in, and they were very I really liked them. And white boots up to the knee, soft leather boots. But he was nice. We chose nice things. I didn't see him again, but I expect he's still in the costume department because he was very good. I suppose I did occasionally wear my own clothes for small parts in things later, but I can't really remember. There was never any problem about that. It was quite what I had was good. Whatever it was, people seemed to be fine with that.
I've not spoken to a costume designer of this period yet anyway, and it must be quite interesting how they would sort of dress somebody for something that they knew was going to be broadcast in black and white compared to
That's
the colour, because
good
of
point.
the different sort of
Yes.
contrasts and things like that. But
Well, yeah, that's a very good point. It hadn't occurred to me that.
just a couple more questions on the Persuaders. So both your episodes were directed by Leslie Norman.
Yes.
Barry Norman, the film critic's father.
Oh yes.
Did you remember Leslie? Was he?
No,
Was he?
but I remember the name, and when
yeah.
you say these names, I instantly remember them. But I didn't talk to him particularly. I don't think he was the producer.
Well, Leslie was director.
He was the director
yeah.
of the Persuaders.
Oh yes, he did both your episodes.
Yes.
And a lot of other
It's funny I don't
series
remember
as well.
him, but I don't particularly.
But again, the first rate sort of filmmaker.
Yeah.
So you're based at Pinewood for Persuaders.
Yes.
It's people tend to, when I ask them, in terms of favourite studios to work in, a lot of people seem to say Pinewood versus places like Elstree. From your point of view, did you know much difference from working somewhere like Elstree or Pinewood? Did they have different feels to them, or were they kind of
No, I do remember Pinewood, and it was very unusual. It was a beautiful country house and all that. I think a lot of stuff at Pinewood, more probably than at Elstree. I remember doing something with Patrick Wymark in Pinewood. Oh yes, and a film with Tom Bell, I think, and Joan Collins has filmed it. I remember, I think I remember Pinewood more. Those were the two places. I don't think there was any other major films except Twickenham, the small two, things. I
mean Debenham, what's the other ones?
I don't know, but they were easier to get to, by the way, and it was just as well I could learn to drive, because it would be very difficult to have got there if I couldn't drive.
Yeah.
They didn't send cars for you in those days, so you got yourself there by quite early, 8 o'clock probably. But you could leave home and just get up there in half an hour because there was practically no traffic.
Yeah.
take you hours to drive to Pinewood from central London now.
It would, and Pinewood has changed an awful lot as well. You know, there used to be the very famous entrance that you sort of like
Yes.
the cottage sort of thing that you would have gone through. Now that's kind of sort of closed off, and there's this huge, big, you know, barriers and all the security people.
Well, that's extraordinary. It's a bit like when I tapped on the door at the BBC to meet Michael Gill all those years ago. I just drove in. There was somebody at the gate that said, "Oh, come in." Parked the car. There was room for parking for about 20 cars in that circular bit, and there was a space there. Walked in. With very little competition. I mean, anybody that now gets anywhere, I take my hat off to them. Thousands and thousands of people for every job, you know. Amazing.
So you wouldn't, if you it was a situation now, you were thinking of doing acting now. And if you were starting your career now, I take it you might think twice about it.
I would. I would definitely think twice about it. I mean, something huge proportion of actors are out of work all the time, 90% or something.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why the convention circuit is so good. Not only is there a sociable and a pocket money aspect to it, but for a lot of actors it is their livelihoods. You know, that there have been a few things that were very popular, but for whatever reason...
Absolutely, that is fair enough. And it's social and financial. It's a nice carry-on, isn't it? And,
and so your second Persuaders episode, you do actually get to do a bit of location shooting. You have a nice little sports car that you drive yourself, which again would have probably reasonably unusual at the times. It would probably been a stunt person usually that would have done it, but
I was actually
you were behind the wheel on that one,
Well, that was good fun. That's all I can remember. It was the real thing, you know.
Well, it must have been nice getting out of the stuffy studio and doing something like that.
Completely. It was extraordinary. It was really extraordinary. I wasn't at all nervous of working with famous people. I can't think why, but I haven't really been. I suppose I wasn't brought up with a huge amount of watching films and things, so but we didn't have television when I was at home, so I wouldn't have been in awe. I think that was perhaps quite a bit of luck really for me, because otherwise you'd be terrified of working with famous people, or you might be.
I made the mistake once of doing a telephone interview with a lady called Catherine Shell. Lovely lady, but I made a mistake of looking at some of her work beforehand, and sort of I felt a bit kind of in awe of her, and I felt myself a little bit nervous speaking. Obviously, that doesn't happen since, because I've got a good amount of experience.
I think you're a really good interviewer. I imagine you've done it enough to know what works, and
Oh yeah. I think so.
It's lovely.
It was Burnham Beeches where you were driving the car.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
and that's
lovely.
a very beautiful place.
Lovely area.
Down
Yes.
there. I was down there only a couple of weeks ago actually.
Yes.
And because they filmed some Bond films and
Yes.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves down there, and all sorts of.
Well,
things.
it's within 100 miles of London, and some producer must have told me this, that they always chose locations within 100 miles for almost anything, because otherwise you had to put people up in the local hotel. And the budget would have quadrupled. So the pretty places within 100 miles of London is probably still that's true. I think Gloucestershire, parts of Gloucester are still within that, so they do a certain amount of filming around here. But certainly the M4 sort of opened it out to more people.
The amount of location tours that film fans do, 20 miles around glamorous Slough, it's quite
the 20-mile one would be a fun job actually, location manager, I'd have thought.
You think of nowadays you've got, we'll just Google that or we'll have a look.
Of course.
But now of course they had to find places, and even now sort of the brilliance of saying, well, we shoot half of this in Scotland, that will double Norway. Or
yes, they do that.
That's an amazing thought process of how they kind of pick.
It is. In fact, there's a local pub. It's just down the road, and it's a low white pub. It must have been painted white about 100 years ago, but they have used it for the Lake District because it doesn't look like Gloucestershire. So you occasionally see a film company there and it's shooting something like Murder Mystery, whatever it's called, in the Lake District.
And so your second Persuaders, that was basically Tony Curtis. You were doing a lot of your scenes were. So you said that Tony was
a hypochondriac. That was the word I was thinking of. Yes.
But he was okay.
He was absolutely fine. No, he was very, very professional, and it was really good fun. Yeah.
And Brian Clemens wrote both your
yes,
episodes.
Brian Clemens. Well, I remember him because of Adam Adamant as well. He was one of the writers on that.
Oh yes, of course he was.
Yes.
And I wonder whether that was another thing, is if a writer had written you before, or director, they would kind of that's partly why you'd get the same people kind of around.
I think that's really interesting. It's like a tapestry. You could sort of thread them all into that 10 years. You know, the major players actually.
And apart from Tony and Roger and Lawrence Naismith, who played the judge in that.
Yes, I do remember him. Yes. Didn't have a scene with him. I don't.
Didn't have a scene with him, but was he all right as an actor?
He was considered very good. Yes, but
yeah.
I didn't meet him. No. I think all my scenes were with Tony and Roger.
Tony and Roger. Yeah, they were kind of around.
Yeah, we didn't go to Paris, but I remember that was the first line. But I always looked forward to something abroad. That would be a wonderful.
Did you get to do that at any time?
Very seldom. I made a film once in the south of France. It was a short film. I think it was called I've forgotten what it's called. It was dark. I can't remember anything about it, but I might remember and let you know. But it was really one of the few things I did abroad. I can't remember.
That's okay. I was just going to show you one other person that was in your Avengers episode, but he was also in the back around those scenes in your Persuaders. Patrick Newell.
Oh yes.
Do you remember
yes,
him?
My face lights up every time I see some. Yes, of course, he was there. Yes, no particular memory, but yeah. Look at these leaves, like the snow. They're going all over the place.
Yeah, I was
quite pretty,
when I was in Vernon Beaches a week or so ago. Oh, it was stunning. You know, I was taking photographs and
Lovely.
it just didn't do it justice. And I love this time of year.
I'm so glad it's a nice day that came up here.
So as I was saying, you were the only other character apart from the three principals that did return in more than one episode.
Yes.
So I think it was kind of perhaps designed that you would
might
be a
carry
recurring
on.
character.
I don't know why I didn't.
Yeah.
I got on very well with everybody, but I didn't anyway. I wasn't the sort of person. I suppose I was just quite confident that something else would crop up, because I didn't sort of set my heart on, I might get to another one. You know, it was good enough as it was, sort of.
So it wasn't ever pitched to you that we might want you back, or
no, they. I think that was taken for granted that if I'd done two, they were keeping their options open. I would imagine, but they went another route. I don't know what they did, but yes.
And also the show didn't get a second series because Roger went to go and do Bond.
That's right.
So I think otherwise.
Oh, that's right. Well, that might have been different. They might have known that he was going to do Bond after that, and my possible continuation might have affected that, that affected that. Yeah. I think that's probably what happened. I didn't realise that.
You know the one show I just want to mention very briefly, Danger Man.
Yes.
Patrick McGoon.
Yes.
Somebody again like
he was
Jason King,
extremely charismatic.
Yes.
I do think he was considered a very good actor, but he had a definite sort of, we all respect this person in the room, you know, very much so. Yeah. He must be a lot older than me, I should imagine he would be. Is he still alive?
I know Patrick McGoon died a few years ago, I don't remember exactly.
I think he'd be at least
I think he died before Peter Wingard.
Yeah.
I know that much, but I think him and Peter Wingard and Tony Curtis as well. I think if you're on the right side, they were perfect. If not, you would know.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. So I luckily didn't have anybody that I appeared to be on the wrong side of, but maybe I just intuited that they might be a bit difficult. I better watch myself, you know. Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Well, I think you do, don't you? If you know who's got a sense of humour or who has to be treated carefully in any room, really. In any group of new people.
You've had so many lovely TV roles, reoccurring and also guest spots, villains and heroines. But are sometimes the villains more interesting to play? a bit more sort of going into a dark area where you wouldn't normally go in reality? Is it sort of interesting to do that? Or?
If I was a really serious actress, I would probably say I prefer the villains, but I was just happy with anything really.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think any role has its own kind of.
I think it was quite an old-fashioned role, thinking back to Adam, and it was like some of those American silent films, so there was always a lady sort of tied to the railway track or something terrible was going to happen to her, and in the last minute she's saved, you know, very old-fashioned, almost Charlie Chaplin kind of stuff, isn't it, some of that?
Yes, it was, yeah. And I've spoken to quite a few actors who, when I know in preparation for today, I sent you some episodes and you very kindly had a look at them. Some actors just don't want to have a look at stuff at all. If you're very self-conscious about it, I take it you don't mind seeing things that you've done.
I didn't seem to have any time for any preparation at all, so that didn't really bother me.
But you, because when you look at your performances, especially because of so much time has elapsed, do you kind of think who is that person?
It's almost like another person. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
It almost is. It is strange that. It's strange because, of course, it is the same person inside. That's like ageing. It is the same person. You still feel 12 sometimes and 30 sometimes, and all those ages are within you still, you know. And all those types of characters who are different people at different times, but all the same person. It's very, very strange.
Has there ever been a role that you've done, either film, TV, stage, where you've had to learn a particular skill, or?
Yes, there was something actually. It's quite interesting. It was a television film about a teacher at a school for deaf children, and a child escaped for some reason, and there was a tiger that had also escaped. I think it was part of a series. It was HTV in about the 70s. And I do remember that in order for me to talk to this child who I was trying to catch or save from the possibility of being attacked by this tiger that got out of the zoo, I had to learn deaf and dumb language that he could, there might be a proper, more politically correct way of saying that, but you had to put they had to put their hand on my throat, or I had to interpret the vibrations. There was also some of this that I learned, but it was as much to do with the vibrations of the throat that they could understand words from vibrations, and I thought that was interesting. Again, I can't remember much about that except a new skill, which I have forgotten.
So in terms of on-screen roles, that probably was maybe one of the most interesting ones that you did, because you have to get quite involved.
That's a good point, because if you have to learn a new skill, that comes into the performance. Yes, exactly. No, I can't think of that Lambretta at Adam Adamant. Yeah, that was a new skill. I fibbed about that because they said, "Can you do this? Can you do?" Yes, of course I can ride a bike, ski, play lacrosse, whatever they wanted to do. Can you ride Lambretta? Yeah, sure. And I had no idea it was going to feature as my form of transport. It was really, really quite tricky, because I don't know if you've ever ridden a motorbike or anything, but on an ordinary bike, you squeeze the brakes on. On a Lambretta, that's exactly the opposite. That's the accelerator.
Right.
So the first time, instead of stopping, I shot off in the wrong direction. That was really very embarrassing. So I had to practice a bit more eventually. But I didn't really like it. I was a bit nervous of mistaking the accelerator for the brakes. Yeah, I was a bit nervous of that. Riding a horse would be fine. I think I might have done that in some show, but I don't remember which one. But
And do you have any highlights of your theatre career that you'd like to mention, in particular favourite roles or?
No, it was very bonding. I mean, I do remember more about the people that I work with, like Simon. It's incredibly fun. You go to some weird places and there's only one restaurant, Indian restaurant usually, so there was actually somebody called Valentine Dial that was quite well known. I think he was the voice in Adam Adamant, and he was on this particular tour of the Agatha Christie, and we had really great fun. Yes. I can't remember particular episodes, but you go to funny parts of the country and you stay in digs, and it's lovely to be in unusual places, paid to be on the Yorkshire Dales to stay, or in the Highlands of Scotland, nearest to the theatre that you're working at. It was a joy, and an adventure, more like an adventure than work. That you like, great challenge as well, but a mixture of all those things.
It's quite interesting that some of the shows that people know you for, that are sort of 50 years plus, and shows that at the time were just jobs of work, a few days here, or a few months.
Yes, it never occurred to me they would be well thought of.
Was there a time that you noticed where suddenly people were starting to reach out to you? Did you kind of, when sort of there was this interest? Was there kind of a moment when you thought, oh, why are people suddenly mentioning these things again? Was there sort of, you mentioned Jazz Wiseman got in touch with you, was that kind of...
I don't quite know why it was then. I think it was because they were going to put them on video, and I think that started that one. Luckily, the whole celebrity thing hadn't kicked off. I would have found it absolutely frightening and certainly annoying, and the thought that you could be stalked, or horrible things happen to famous people now. I would not have liked that. I wouldn't have been able to cope with it at all. I mean, the sort of things I'm meant to be frightened of in Adam Adamant, I wouldn't deal with in real life probably at all well.
And why do you think these shows have had such a life?
I'd like you to answer that one. I have no idea at all. That's what your book should be about.
Well, I think
it's social history, isn't it?
Yes, I think part of it is a snapshot of the times.
Yeah.
And it's as somebody who wasn't around then, to see London, quiet and
very quiet,
geographically very different as well, and the fashion and so there's a certain amount of time capsule elements to it.
It may be that. And somehow subconsciously we had different choices then, and they were just the choices you had. So I suppose you pick that up if you watch it later. Oh, I'd never done. I wouldn't have been allowed to do that. Oh, that wasn't possible. That would, too many choices now, really. But I think people are. Yes, I think perhaps they're historic now. Actually, I think it may be that.
And I think also it's just really good storytelling as well. The scripts were very good, or even though sometimes the plots could be a bit similar, but they were always very original and well made.
They were.
Technicians.
As we've said, they were very well made. I think if we'd done a third series of Adam Adamant, that would have been better made, with more money and less wobbly sets and things, But they were funny. They were very funny. Some of them, like you say, the story writing was good. They were very innocent times, and I suppose some of that comes over. And there's one unbelievably politically incorrect Adam Adamant, with all these Arabs in some sort of place. I don't remember what that one was called. You'd never be allowed to do that now. People putting on funny voices, like Peter Sellers, and he wasn't, but you just wouldn't get away with that. So people might like the unwokey stuff that they're watching sometimes.
I think it's more story driven rather than special effects and things like that. And you have really good character actors, and we've mentioned a lot of them today.
Oh, terrific! I mean, really award-winning actors were coming and going, and it was a huge privilege.
And to finish off, is there any memories of any shows or favourite moments of anything that you would like to mention that I haven't asked you about?
No, I don't think so. You've been very thorough. Something I wanted to find the other day, actually, which was an interesting thing. it was a BBC film in a series called Leap in the Dark, called Emily Sargé, and Leslie Manville was in it, and I saw her fairly recently. She's so sweet, she remembered doing all that, it was her first job. But I wondered if we could get hold of it. We couldn't, the BBC seemed to have lost it, but it was like a woman who had a doppelganger, and she was a real woman in France in about 1840, and she was a governess really, or something like that, to a group of 3 or 4 ladies, young girls. And we filmed that in a beautiful house near here, but it was made in Bristol. And I can't find it.
What was it called again?
It's called Emilie. This is a real woman, and there's lots of evidence at the time. Sagie with an accent, Emily Sargé. And she really did appear to have a doppelganger, and the girls kept seeing her in 2 places, and nobody knew what the truth was. I think she eventually got the sack from various jobs and had to give up teaching. So it was a sort of phenomenon, or whatever it's called.
I'll certainly see if I can
quite
locate
interesting, yes.
because of course some of your episodes of Adam Adamant don't exist,
I
unfortunately.
know, and there's one very rare one that probably Jazz or Andrew Pixley, who seemed to be in charge of the film that we did at Pinewood, I forget what it was called, but there is a rare one that's actually quite valuable that collectors would be very interested if I ever found. But
things pop up all the time. You never know something might.
Yeah, I never saw a little dolly either of me. That you can buy them on the internet, but I wouldn't particularly want. They made a doll of me apparently.
And
in the gear.
Oh, yeah. And is it? Do you think is it quite a nice legacy to have been involved in these shows, and to know that as long as they watch
hugely.
TV,
It was another me, but it is exciting, and I suppose I would have forgotten all about it if it wasn't for people like yourself.
Yeah.
It's quite true, and it reminds me of what a happy time it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
In 100 years' time, we're both long gone.
Yes.
People will still be watching
yes.
and these
They
films.
might.
It must be kind of.
They might. Isn't it strange?
An immortality that actors have in a way that most people don't. But
yes, and they say that it's called something you can freeze people in ice. I mean, that might happen. So that might come true.
No, yes. Yeah.
Not in our time, but.
Yeah. But it's these imaginative ideas, isn't it? That call our imaginations with something like Adam Adamant.
Yes.
And
there's not really the equivalent now. I mean, some of those black something, kind of strange things were sort of a more serious version of Adam Adamant's stories.
More black comedy.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah.
But yes, weird. Weird is more popular now.
Yeah.
Spooky weird.
And
fright, danger weird, you know, all sorts of things like that.
And you say that the programs that you were involved with were kind of
innocent.
real family innocent shows that you can introduce your children to, and part of that is the
I mean, you could probably show those to children and they might quite like it, the Adam Adamants, I don't know. I mean, what my children have seen, I don't think they'd be particularly interested because they're now 46 and 50. But when they were little, they would have liked to see them, I think. I probably looked more like me then as well, so that...
They never wanted to follow Mum's...
No, I think one of our granddaughters might act. She might be an actor. She goes to the National Film School, at the National Youth Theatre. And Bill, she absolutely keeps in the character. And the 4 little children come here and put on their own shows, and they write their own scripts, and they get the music, and it's delightful actually. And the plays have changed a bit because the 2 younger ones were always the little children, and the 2 older ones were the parents. And now they've got different roles. They're very good at music, all of them. I don't know where they've got that from, but they all play an instrument, not brilliantly, but for fun, you know. That's a very nice continuity about it all. Yes, it's definitely in the blood, I think, but whether any of them do it, I don't know. They might, in one way or another, be in the creative industry somewhere, I think, all of them.
Well, it seems like they will, but you, of course, with your painting, and again,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
keeping yourself
Yeah.
in the arts and
Exactly.
and everything. Well, what made you want to because you've done exhibitions of artwork.
Yeah, yeah.
What kind of drove you to sort of
To
want
do-
to do
to do that.
painting and things like that?
Well, when my children were little, when our children were little, I thought I've got to work from home. I can't live in the country and not work at all. So I'd always painted, and I did some children's books, and that meant I was here after school for them and with all the homework stuff, and I enjoyed that because I'd been a teacher anyway. So I liked helping them with stuff and projects and all that. And then when they moved away, then I started painting more all the time. And I had wanted to be a botanist at one point, so I've always loved flowers. And here I'm surrounded. And yes, and a couple of weeks ago, if you'd come, all my paintings, some of them are still there, the ones I didn't sell. But we got rid of the telly.
Yeah.
This was my little reception area. We had drinks and I sold 10 paintings. That was lovely.
Wow. Yeah.
It was open for a week.
Mm.
And I had a kind of limited list of people, so I knew most of the people. So either friends or friends of friends came. We didn't know who was going to walk in. It was fun. It was socially fun as well. I think we've covered everything.
Oh yeah, that's quite a lovely place to.
I will take
end
your
it.
email in case I think of anything else.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, yeah, thank you very much for sharing so many wonderful memories.
Well, it's a pleasure, Philip. I really enjoyed it. And you have reminded me of so many things.
Oh yes, please. Thank you very much. But just to finish the interview, Juliet Harmer, thank you very much. Thank you.
Pleasure. It really was a pleasure.
Oh good, I'm glad.
You put
Yeah.
that- It really was a pleasure.
Oh good, glad you enjoyed it.
That's the last line.
A lovely line to end it, thank you very much.